If you drive a car or ride a bicycle, you have seen traffic lights on the road and the way to respect them. This is the thing, we also familiar with the traffic lights. So we know red means stop, green means go, and amber means something is about to change. We take the driving license and we know that when we are driving and there's a green traffic light ahead of us, we need to be aware that might turn amber to signal it's turning red. If we know all that, how does it apply to neurodiversity when, in the case of ASD, we might be more prone to have a binary green or red, no amber? In today's episode, I will share my behavior before I had the diagnosis of ASD and how that applied in my relationship with a friend, which actually happens to be a witness of my wedding. I will share the experience of how that went, how my neurodiversity reflected, and how, looking back now, I can share with you ways to go forward. So let's go for it. Welcome back to ASD is Ability, the podcast where I share experience about ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder, and where everybody is welcome to hear my experiences and also my point of view of how to live with ASD and also how to live with people with ASD around us. In today's episode is a blast from the past. I go back to how I behave in one aspect of my wedding and how I got that from an old friend whom I met this past weekend. I was working in London back in that time, and one of my colleagues was a really good friend, and we spent a lot of time together. When it came to the point of deciding who would be my witness for the wedding, I thought, you know what, I know him well. I know he's available because I've seen on the schedule that he's having time off. I'm just going to ask him. Now, this approach of asking, it was very different from how a lot of people do it. As someone with ASD, I was not possibly so empathetic and I was very factual. And this came to light this past weekend. So we discussed with my friend, we were talking about how long we have known each other. And he said, you know what, when you decided to just get married and you asked me about witness, you were like, okay, next day, next Thursday, next week, are you free, right? And he was like, yes, I think I am, yes. And I said, well, if there's nothing to do, I want you to be my witness. How about that? And he said yes, and he was also shocked by the approach. Back then, I was not aware of having ASD. So for me, it was very normal to approach someone and ask that way. It was definitely not for him having a different neurodiversity. So we had a good laugh when he shared with me this experience. And looking back, I feel like, yes, it's just really a waking moment. The moment we are aware of our own neurodiversity, we start having a richer life. We know what we do. We know better how we react to anything happening around us. And more importantly, we know how to interact better with people around us. In this case, my approach was so kind of binary, yes, no, that is like if you have a traffic light where it's only red and green. For going, from red to green, that would be fine. So you are waiting for the red, goes green, okay, you engage and you go. It would not be so good from green to red. It's a very sudden stop. That's why we have amber. And in some countries, actually, we have amber going from red to green. Like in the UK, we have it. So it helps people to prepare if they have to change gears, and just informs everybody what change is going to happen on the sequence. In my case, asking for a witness for the wedding, I didn't ask for, there was no amber there. It was like clear. I would say it was a red suddenly. So on a conversation that was very jovial, nothing specific, suddenly, bang, can you do this? And the nature of what I ask as well, because it's not like asking, oh, do you want to go out for a drink, or do you want to watch something? No, it was like witness for my wedding, in a sense, putting a lot of responsibility to him. How I would do different now? Well, I would be completely different. I would understand the importance of preparing the background and be more considerate about how the other person might have commitments. And it's a big question to ask. The reason why I brought this topic today is to share what happened to me over the weekend, reflect a bit more about my past, and explain that when you are interacting or in conversation with someone with ASD, the conversation sometimes can be quite abrupt. If you feel that what you get is a very binary yes, no, or very direct, very factual conversation, is not in a bad manner. Is not willing to just make any effect on you. It's just the way of thinking. People with ASD think very factual, very binary. It's a yes, it's a no, and therefore sometimes communication can be very direct, so direct that can be shocking for someone from a different neurodiversity. That's why the analogy of the traffic light is so important. Those of you that have ASD, or who might suspect you have ASD, or don't know you have ASD and recognize this behavior of going so direct to people, I would recommend that you think about traffic light when there is some topic that is more sensitive and delicate. In the same way that when you drive, you find some signals that say, well, recommended this type of speed. Sometimes they say, well, there's a yield sign in 300 meters, now it's 100 meters. So give you a bit of background. The more severe the importance of the information, the more relevant it is. So the traffic lights needs to have a number, otherwise will be a disaster for people driving. So same with conversations. If there's something that is important to you, means that you don't want to be disappointed and the expectations are high. Therefore, being important to you might bring pressure to the other person receiving that. Better to think, how are you gonna move from green to red? How are you gonna put that amber? How are you gonna paint the picture, and just look to read the room and how you go from there? That's my advice for anyone who has ASD or might think has ASD. And for those that are having conversation with someone with ASD and they can tell that direct approach, a good way to manage that is first understanding where that person is coming from. That is not about being too direct or even rude or, no, it's not like that. And then put a bit of buffer. Allow the other person to sink in. Pause is great. So when an ASD person makes a question like that, so direct, if you pause and you make a few more questions, you're showing interest, and then you can just facilitate more. So like in the case I share, if my friend had said, "Oh, let me think about this. So tell me a bit more. Give me a bit more details on how do you have any other people, or how come you thought about me?" And just give a bit more buffer. That allows the person that needs to make the decision a bit of time to think. And for the people asking, just really get the sense that they are listened and they are considerate. So this is an example I brought today, live example of what happened to me in experience. For those of you, whenever you have a question or receive a question, or you make a question to someone, that is very important. And I will continue sharing these kind of experiences as we go through. And I invite you to listen to our next episode of ASD is Ability. I trust you guys have a great time and see you next time. Take care.